Welcome to Cuisines and Cocktails. I'm your host, Chef James Jens of Dinners with Class. On today's episode, we're going to be doing a bourbon bacon cocktail, a cowboy steak, and apple crisp. It's kind of a Western theme today. So for the cocktail, we're going to take a shaker, and this is a peppercorn brown sugar simple syrup. We're going to add about 1/2 ounces, 2 ounces of bourbon, and we're going to shake. Chilled glass. Strain. And for garnish, I took some bacon, drizzle it with some maple syrup, some black peppercorns, and that we're going to use for our garnish. And there is your bourbon bacon cocktail. When we come back, we're going to start on a rancher style baked beans and do a pan seared steak. All right, so we're gonna start by making the rancher style baked beans. We're gonna start by caramelizing some bacon, and we're just going to cut into what's officially called a lardoon, or strips of bacon. And in a modest size pot, we're going to start to render that. And then while the bacon is rendering, we can go ahead and cut up a red onion. And these can be kind of a little more chunky in a style. Probably, I don't want to say less important to be precise, but it's meant to be kind of viewed like a, cowboys in the backcountry out west making this over a campfire kind of scenario. So they're not going to have exact measurements. So if it's a little off, it's actually kind of cool. And you're going to put some peppers for color and flavor. And we'll do a white onion for a little bit more onion flavor. So red onion is a little bit on the sweeter side. Yellow and white onions are a little bit more pungent in flavor. So we get both aspects of the onion world. And we'll take a couple of cloves of garlic. And again, we're not going to smash them. We want to kind of see this. This is a chunky style baked bean recipe. Then for beans, we're going to use 4 different types of beans. We're going to use a black bean, a pinto bean, a kidney bean, and a cannellini or a butter bean. They all just give a different style of flavor. And what's really most important about this is you want to have kind of equal amounts of things, so you don't have one ingredient overpower the others. So don't cram like tons and tons of bacon. You just want enough bacon that it has a nice bacon flavor throughout, but isn't just bacon with beans. It's beans with a little bit of bacon, not bacon with beans. Now that the bacon has rendered, we're going to leave the fat in there because that's going to be the fat medium that we're going to saute the rest of the vegetables. So we're going to add the peppers and onions and the garlic. And also at this time we're going to add a seasoning blend. This has smoked paprika, some pepper flakes, cumin, and chili powder. And adding that while you're sauteing is actually kind of a good thing because it allows the spices to bloom and release their essential oils that actually make the flavors become brighter and a little bit more vibrant. So we're just gonna sweat the onions and get a little bit of color on them. We don't have to get them real soft, because we are going to add the beans, a little bit of stock, some brown sugar, cook it down, and then while we cook the steak, we're going to actually put some of it into a little ramekin and then bake it for a while. So we don't want to, there's more cooking processes, so we don't want to have it real soft. I like having that balance of a kind of a soft, tender bean and a little bit slicey al dente vegetable. Now that we put a little bit of heat on the vegetables, we're going to add some corn. And whenever I make bacon just for breakfast, I always save the bacon fat. This is the fat from rendering the bacon for the cocktail earlier in the show. We can always add a little bit more bacon fat just to keep it a nice moist bottom on the pan so it doesn't burn and stick to the bottom. And we're also going to add some black pepper. We're going to add the brown sugar at this point. A bit of Worcestershire sauce. And scrape all those beautiful caramelization fond bits on the bottom of the pan, get them loose. And we can add the beans. We're going to add a little bit of beef stock. We're going to bring this up to a boil, and then we're going to let it simmer for about 5 minutes. And while this is getting ready, let me get a saute pan. We'll get ready to sear the steak, and we'll continue with that. Well, so we've been simmering the baked beans with corn and vegetables and all the other goodness. And we're just going to do it one last stir. Put into a crock, and we're going to put it in the oven while we sear off the steak. Just give it a nice crust on top. We have a pan heating up, medium-high heat. We're going to use a little bit of the bacon fat. We're going to generously season the steak with some black peppercorns, with salt, and into the saute pan. And again, like I always tell people, let the meat release from the pan instead of trying to pick it up. So let it actually cook and sear. Don't try to be on a super high heat and try to get it done real fast. Take your time, let it caramelize, let a nice, even, gentle heat. You'll have a much better end result. So we're gonna let this cook about 1.5 to 2 minutes on this side. We'll flip it, then we'll let it rest for a minute or two, and then we'll have the baked beans come out of the oven, and we'll be able to put together this. Then when we come back, we'll put together the entree, and then we'll work on the dessert. So we cooked the ribeye. We did about 2.5 minutes on either side. Got a nice crust on it. We're gonna let it sit and rest. We're gonna just tent it with a little bit of aluminum foil to keep it warm. But really, resting your steaks is a great opportunity to let the juices come back into the steak, so when you eat it and cut it, it's a nice, juicy, flavorful steak. So for dessert, we're doing an apple crisp. I like to do a couple of fun things with the apple crisp. I like to put a little golden raisins to it. We're just going to peel 2 apples, and then rough cut them into dices, large dice. And then the topping is going to be whole wheat flour, rolled oats, brown sugar, white sugar, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of coconut. And then we're going to cut in some cold butter, about 8 tablespoons. So these are Granny Smith apples. They're probably some of the more tart, good apples to use. They hold up while baking, so you still have kind of a crunchy apple texture, and it's not just like a pureed applesauce. flavor. And if there's a little bit of apple skin on, that's not a big deal. You just don't want a ton of it. It does get a little loose when the apples bake. Into the bowl with the golden raisins. We're going to dust this with a little bit of white sugar, tablespoon of honey. If I can get the bear to release the honey. It's kind of like Winnie the Pooh. No one give up the honey. There we go. And we're just going to toss this around. And put our apples and raisins in this little ramekin over here. And it's going to bake down, so you can kind of mound it up. And this is the holy flour and the brown sugar, the white sugar, the coconut. We're going to add the butter to it. Then we're going to take a pastry cutter. If you don't have a pastry cutter, you can use a fork. You can use your hands, but make sure your hands are cold so you don't melt the butter instantly. Because you want the butter to create little, almost like a sand or little fine granules of grain kind of concept. Just keep working it, kind of the flour into the butter. Alrighty. So this is a staple dessert in our household every fall. And we always do apples and cherry and all the harvest fruits that come out of the orchards around our house in Wisconsin. Alright. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a sheet tray, just make it a little bit easier on ourselves to get in and out of the oven. And we're going to liberally pat our topping over the apples. All right. So now that we have this, we're going to put this in the oven, 350 for about 20 minutes, and then we'll be ready to serve our first courses. Alrighty, so we have our seared steak that's been resting nicely. Not that it's going to go anywhere, but let's pull out the apple crisp and the baked beans and we'll finish plating. Got a nice crust on top, and we got our baked beans. And the steak, we're gonna just slice up for presentation's sake. And if you like it more well done, you can definitely cook it longer. This is just a nice rare steak. Some herbs on it. And then for the apple crisp, we're gonna make a chantilly cream real quick. And what makes a chantilly cream, besides the song, is the addition of some kind of alcohol. Today we're using bourbon and a little bit of whipped cream. So once you whip to medium peak, stiff peaks of the whipped cream, just fold in sour cream and the alcohol of your choice. You can use bourbon, you can use rum, brandy, re-whip it, and those two additions along with the normal sugar and vanilla give it a little bit of a tang and kind of break up the sweetness of the dish. Alrighty, so there we go. We have a cowboy steak with rancher style baked beans and an apple crisp. My name is James Jens. I'm the chef of Dinners with Class and your host of Cuisines and Cocktails. Join us next time when we explore some more unique adventures in food.